You know, it's funny how something as ordinary as spare change can actually hide treasures worth thousands. Today, we're going to talk about three very specific quarters from the U.S. Mint. Coins minted in 1979, 1967, and 1981 that aren't just old pocket change, but can command serious money if you know what to look for. Whether you've been collecting coins for years, or you've got a jar of coins from your parents or grandparents stashed away, these quarters might surprise you. By the end of this, you might even find yourself digging through your old coin rolls with a new sense of excitement. Let's kick things off with the 1979 quarter. Now, at first glance, a 1979 Washington quarter doesn't seem like anything special. Over 515 million were minted at Philadelphia alone, so they're not exactly scarce in terms of numbers. But what really makes the 1979 quarter stand out are the unique errors that slipped past the Mint's quality control that year. And it's those errors that have turned an otherwise common coin into a coveted collectible. The most famous error associated with the 1979 quarter is the so-called clipped planchet error. During the minting process, sometimes the metal sheets used to punch out blank coins aren't perfectly aligned, leading to coins with a noticeable curved section missing. It almost looks like someone took a small bite out of the edge of the quarter. If you've got a 1979 quarter with a clean crescent-shaped clip, that's a strong sign you've found one of these errors. The value? Depending on the size of the clip and the overall condition, these can sell anywhere from $50 to several $100s, with pristine examples drawing even more attention from collectors. Another interesting error from the 1979 quarters is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank isn't properly seated in the press, causing the design to be struck partially off the surface. If the date and mint mark are still visible, but the design is noticeably shifted, that's considered a prime example of this error. Off-center strikes are graded by how far off they are, with more dramatic misalignments fetching higher prices. A 1979 quarter struck 10% off-center might bring in $75 to $150, but if you find one that's 50% off-center with clear details, you could be looking at $400 or more. The sweet spot is finding one with both the date and mint mark intact despite the misstrike. And speaking of mint marks, it's worth noting that the 1979 quarter was minted in Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D mint mark, and San Francisco, S mint mark. The San Francisco quarters from 1979 were intended as proof coins, meaning they were struck with specially polished dies for collectors, rather than for general circulation. If you stumble upon a 1979 S-proof quarter in circulation, especially one with a cameo or deep cameo finish, that alone can make it worth around $4 to $10, even in circulated condition. But the real money is in finding error-proof coins, double strikes, die cracks, or other anomalies that slip through the higher standards of proof production. Some of these error-proof coins have sold for over $1,000 at auction. One fascinating tidbit about the 1979 quarter involves the transition period for proof coins that year. The Mint made a subtle change to the S mint mark mid-year, switching from a filled S to a clearer, more defined S, known as the Type 2 mint mark. On proof coins, this change is subtle but crucial for collectors. The 1979 S-Type 2 proof quarter is scarcer and much more sought after than its Type 1 counterpart. A 1979 S-Type 2 quarter in PR69 DCM, proof 69 deep cameo, can easily sell for $75 to $150, and PR70 examples have reached over $2,000 at auction. Of course, condition is everything. A circulated 1979 quarter with an error is valuable, but a mint state error can multiply that value significantly. Coins graded MS65 and above, free from scratches, wear or discoloration, attract top dollar bids. For example, a clipped planchet or off-center 1979 quarter in MS66 or MS67 condition can push past $500, depending on the error severity and eye appeal. Beyond errors, another subtle factor that affects the 1979 quarter's value is die deterioration. As the dies aged during production, they developed cracks, chips, and other imperfections that transferred to the coins. Coins showing clear die cracks, sometimes called cuds when they appear as blobs along the rim, are popular among error collectors. While these minor errors won't fetch thousands, a dramatic cud on a 1979 quarter can still bring in $20 to $75 depending on its size and placement. A fun story tied to the 1979 quarter involves a famous hoard discovered in the 1990s. A collector purchased a bulk lot of 1979 quarters from a local bank and, while sorting through them, found over 40 off-center strikes and several clipped planchets hidden among the rolls. It's a reminder that even coins in ordinary circulation can hide rarities if you take the time to look closely. When it comes to grading the 1979 quarter, collectors focus on strike quality, luster, and any blemishes. A standard business strike 1979 quarter without errors, even in brilliant uncirculated condition, typically hovers around face value to a couple dollars unless it's graded extremely high, like MS-68 or better. Those high grades are incredibly rare and can command prices upwards of $500 simply due to their exceptional preservation. So, if you've got a 1979 quarter sitting in a drawer, take a closer look. Check the edges for clips, examine the strike for any misalignment, and if it's an S-mint proof, look closely at the mint mark style. A coin you thought was just another quarter might be a hidden gem. And the best part? The hunt for these errors can turn a simple afternoon of coin searching into a rewarding and valuable discovery. Next, let's shift gears and talk about another fascinating quarter that predates this one. The 1967 quarter, a coin with its own share of surprises and hidden treasures waiting to be uncovered. The 1967 quarter holds a unique place in U.S. coin history, coming right in the middle of a transitional era for American coinage. After the Coinage Act of 1965, the U.S. Mint removed silver from dimes and quarters, replacing it with a copper-nickel-clad composition. By 1967, the country was still adjusting to the disappearance of silver coins from circulation, and the mint was working overtime to meet demand. More than 1.5 billion quarters were struck in 1967, making it one of the highest mintage years. But despite that enormous production number, the 1967 quarter has earned attention among collectors for its rare errors and unusual features that slipped past quality control. One of the standout errors from the 1967 quarter is the double die error. This happens when the coin's die, which impresses the design onto blank planchets, shifts slightly between impressions, resulting in a doubled image on certain design elements. On 1967 quarters, doubling is most commonly seen on the obverse, especially in the lettering of Liberty or in God We Trust. These doubled letters can range from subtle to dramatic, and the more noticeable the doubling, the more valuable the coin. A strong doubled die example in uncirculated condition can bring in $150 to $300, while especially bold examples graded MS-65 or higher can fetch over $500 at auction. Another highly sought-after error from 1967 is the off-center strike. Similar to what we discussed with the 1979 quarter, these errors occur when the planchet isn't properly aligned in the press. Off-center strikes from 1967 can vary from slight misalignments to dramatic shifts, where nearly half the design is missing. A 10% off-center 1967 quarter might sell for $50 to $100, while coins that are 50% or more off-center, with the date still visible, can command $300 or more, depending on overall eye appeal and condition. Clipped planchet errors also appear in the 1967 quarter series, though they're less common than other years. These coins are missing a crescent-shaped portion of the metal along the edge, caused by a misfeed in the blanking process. A clean, obvious clip on a 1967 quarter can bring in $75 to $200, depending on size and grade. If you find one with both a clip and another error, like an off-center strike or die crack, that combination can make it even more valuable, as multi-error coins are particularly desirable among advanced collectors. A fun fact about the 1967 quarter is that no mint marks were used that year. The U.S. Mint had temporarily removed mint marks from all coins starting in 1965, as an anti-hoarding measure. This means every 1967 quarter, whether it was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, looks the same at first glance. But despite this lack of mint mark, coins from different mints sometimes exhibit subtle differences in strike quality or die wear, making it an interesting challenge for specialists trying to attribute a coin's origin. Proof coins were also absent in 1967. Instead of issuing traditional proof sets, the mint produced special mint sets, SMS, that year. These coins were struck with more care than regular circulation coins, but didn't receive the same high-polish treatment as proof coins. The 1967 SMS quarters are generally better struck and have a satin-like finish. While common in lower grades, finding a 1967 SMS quarter graded SP67 or higher is much more difficult. A top-grade SMS quarter can sell for $75 to $200, with perfect SP69 examples commanding well over $500. Another error collectors hunt for is die cracks or die breaks, raised lines or blobs of metal caused by damage or wear on the die itself. On 1967 quarters, die cracks are often found along the obverse rim or extending from Washington's hairline. While minor die cracks don't add much value, more dramatic breaks, especially those that form raised lumps or cuds, can increase a coin's value to $25 to $100 depending on size and location. Market-wise, a regular 1967 quarter in circulated condition is worth face value, though some lightly circulated examples in AU, about uncirculated, condition might bring a small premium from collectors trying to complete sets. The real money, though, is in high-grade examples. A 1967 quarter graded MS66 typically sells for around $40 to $75, but jump to MS67, and the price climbs to $150 to $300. MS68 examples are extremely rare and can bring in over $1,000 at auction, simply because so few survived in flawless condition from such a large production run. Interestingly, some 1967 quarters exhibit what's called struck through errors, where a foreign object, like a piece of cloth or wire, got between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving an impression of that object on the coin's surface. These errors can be quite eye-catching and highly collectible, with values ranging from $100 to several $100s, depending on the severity and visibility of the impression. One story that stands out comes from a coin dealer in the early 2000s who discovered a small batch of 1967 quarters with dramatic double die obverse errors mixed into a hoard of common quarters. The coins were purchased from a local bank, having sat untouched for decades. That find sparked renewed interest in searching for 1967 error quarters, leading many collectors to revisit old rolls and bags from that era. When evaluating a 1967 quarter, condition and eye appeal are everything. Clean surfaces, strong strikes, and minimal contact marks make a big difference in price, especially at the higher grades. Whether it's an error coin, an SMS example, or just an exceptionally well-preserved business strike, the right 1967 quarter can add both value and character to a collection. Next up, let's turn our attention to the 1981 quarter, another overlooked coin that's hiding its share of valuable surprises for those who know where to look. The 1981 quarter might not be the first coin that comes to mind when you think of valuable U.S. coins, but for collectors who love tracking down hidden gems, this one has a few surprises up its sleeve. By 1981, the U.S. Mint had fully settled into using copper-nickel-clad compositions, and the Washington quarter's design had remained largely unchanged since 1932. But even in a year with a relatively high mintage, over 1.16 billion coins struck across all three mints, mistakes and anomalies managed to slip through, giving collectors some very interesting pieces to hunt for. Let's start with the most well-known error associated with the 1981 quarter, the double die reverse. This error involves doubling on the back side of the coin, most noticeably on the words, United States of America, e pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. While the doubling on these coins is often more subtle compared to famous doubled dies like the 1955 Lincoln cent, It's still visible with a loop or magnification. A strong double die reverse example from 1981 in uncirculated condition can sell for $100 to $250, depending on the clarity of the doubling and the coin's overall grade. Higher grade specimens certified by top grading services like PCGS or NGC can push those values toward $500 or more. Another exciting variety is the 1981 off-center strike. Just like with the 1967 and 1979 quarters, off-center strikes in 1981 can vary from minor to dramatic, with collectors favoring coins where the date is still fully visible. A lightly off-center 1981 quarter, say, 10% off, might bring $50 to $100, but more extreme examples, especially those struck 40% to 60% off-center with a clear date, can command $300 or more. The further the design drifts off-center, while keeping the date intact, the more desirable the coin becomes. Clipped planchet errors appear less frequently in 1981 quarters, but are still worth looking for. These occur when the blank metal sheet used to make coins wasn't perfectly aligned during punching, resulting in a crescent-shaped missing portion on the coin's edge. A clipped planchet 1981 quarter in average condition might be valued around $50 to $150, depending on clip size and location, but pristine examples with a large, dramatic clip can reach $300 or higher, particularly if they're also well-centered and show full design details elsewhere. Something that sets the 1981 quarter apart from earlier years is the presence of proof-only mint marks. In 1981, the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins with the S Mint mark, which were never intended for general circulation. However, a few examples have been found outside proof sets, either accidentally released or pulled from sets and spent. If you ever find a 1981 S-proof quarter in circulation, it's already worth more than face value, even with some wear. Circulated proofs typically sell for $3 to $10, while high-grade deep cameo proof examples graded PR69 DCM or PR70 DCM can fetch $20 to $100 or more. There's also an interesting subtype of the 1981 S-proof quarter, the Type 1 and Type 2 mint marks. Type 1 features a filled S mint mark, while Type 2 has a clearer, more defined S. Type 2 is scarcer and thus more valuable. A 1981 S-Type 2 proof quarter in PR69 DCM can easily sell for $50 to $100, and top-graded PR70 examples have been known to exceed $500 at auction. Beyond official mint errors, 1981 quarters can also show signs of die deterioration. Things like die cracks or chips that result in raised lines or blobs on the coin's surface. While minor die cracks are more of a curiosity than a major value booster, larger die breaks or cuts can increase a coin's appeal to error collectors, fetching $20 to $75, depending on size and placement. Interestingly, 1981 also saw a few examples of struck-through errors, where foreign objects interfered with the minting process and left impressions on the finished coin. These are usually unique, with values depending heavily on how clear and dramatic the error is. A 1981 quarter struck through fabric or thread, leaving a distinct texture or pattern on part of the coin, could easily sell for $100 to $300 or more to collectors of error coins. When it comes to market value for high-grade business strike 1981 quarters, most circulated examples remain at face value, but once you cross into MS66 territory, prices begin to climb. An MS66 1981 quarter might bring in $25 to $50, while MS67 examples can fetch $100 to $250. MS68 coins are rare and highly sought after, with auction prices often landing between $500 and $1,000. It's not just about the absence of wear, it's the strength of the strike, the brightness of the luster, and the overall eye appeal that elevate these top-tier coins. One fascinating discovery involved a small hoard of 1981 off-center quarters, uncovered by a Midwest coin dealer in the early 2010s. The coins had been sitting untouched in sealed bank bags for decades. Several of the off-center strikes from that hoard went on to sell for several $100s each, sparking new interest in examining sealed bags and old rolls for overlooked mint errors. When you're examining 1981 quarters, it's worth using a magnifier to check the reverse lettering for doubling, scanning the rims for clips or die cracks, and looking for signs of off-center strikes or other anomalies. Sometimes a coin that looks ordinary at first glance turns out to be something special under closer inspection. Altogether, these three quarters, the 1979, 1967, and 1981, show how even mass-produced coins can harbor rare and valuable surprises. Whether it's an off-center strike, a doubled die, or an elusive proof variety, each one tells its own story of how chance, error, and history intertwine in the world of coin collecting. So next time you're sorting through your coins, keep an eye out. That seemingly ordinary quarter might just be a rare treasure hiding in plain sight.